everyone, welcome to Tales from the Casino Pit. This is a podcast about stories in the casino industry. And now, here are your hosts, Jay, John, and Mike.
How's it going, everybody? So thank you for joining our Tales from the Casino Pit. Today, Jay's going to be in the background hiding somewhere. We do have all day Danny, so that's always a bonus. And a special guest, we got Rob. Rob is coming all the way from Hawaii.
Aloha, guys.
So this will be really cool. So for those of you who've watched the Pai Gow Poker on a Sunday, Rob is the unbeatable world champion.
You said Pai Gow Poker. It's tiles, my friend. It's tiles, my friend.
Yeah, tiles, sorry. Pai Gow tiles, yeah.
Biggest pet peeve. Yeah. Do you have Pai Gow? You mean the tiles?
Yeah. So Rob has been in the casino and he's a lot of fun. So we've asked him to come on a Wednesday to chat with us and talk about some of his stories in casinos. And if we're really lucky, he will get to show us his pet pig.
Cersei, say hi. Hi,
there you
Cersei.
go. How cool is that?
Hi, Cersei. I know. It's a zoo over here, guys, by the way. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
So cute.
Yep.
So, Rob, for those who are watching, and Rob is right now sat on his lanai in Hawaii.
Yes.
How did you get into casinos?
So, wow, this is going to be such a degen story, like you won't believe. So when I was young and whatnot, obviously, my parents here and there would go to casinos to just kind of, entertain themselves. And, obviously here I am, underage and whatnot, just like, basically standing at literally the border of whatever I could just to get the glimpse of watching people basically play and whatnot. And basically from that point forward, I basically started learning about the so-called different various games and whatnot in the casino industry. And, fast forward bit by bit, it kind of started to stick on to me. And then I eventually basically became a dealer because of it and everything. So yeah, that's a very quirky, I guess, beginning to the industry itself. But yeah, I was always infatuated by the different various games, cards and whatnot. So, this was just right up my alley. I used to be a former magician back in the day. So, and boom, right up my alley yet again and stuff. So yeah, that's essentially in a nutshell how I basically got started in casinos overall.
So where did you work in casinos?
So I worked in the East Coast. I've worked in various different ones, though. The biggest one that's most well known is the Mohegan Sun. I was there for a few years. Eventually became a dual rate as well. So that was the fun time during the industry. Then after that, I basically worked at two different casino ships. Basically, I mean they were the same ship, they just simply switched owners, and that was it. That's one hell of a story that I'll definitely love to chit chat later on down the cast with you guys on.
Yeah, I think we would like to, because to be honest, what we like to do on this show, I guess, is it's kind of like share stories, especially if they're funny ones and strange. Just because we're all kind of interested and we all have this shared connection with in casinos. So any weird and wonderful stories you have, we'd love to hear.
Oh gosh, what can I even start with? There's so many. Okay, well, first big so-called thing that I would tell you, when I was in Mohegan Sun and I was dealing, it was literally New Year's Eve, right? And for some odd reason, Mohegan Sun had the greatest idea of basically serving milkshakes. You can order milkshakes at the table, full on whipped cream with freaking all the toppings stuffed way high. This guy orders this strawberry milkshake, whipped cream whatever, a foot high with cherries all on top. Literally come midnight, the guy just I'm dealing blackjack. The guy just literally yells Happy New Year. He freaking elbows this gigantic wine glass full of strawberry milkshake, and it just goes all over the freaking chip tray, and I'm like staring. I'm like, what? It's like the I just can't. I'm like, what on earth do we do now? I'm like, oh gosh. So, well, party was over, and I don't know. It's probably the same way, where you guys have dealt, or maybe not. But like, yeah, I mean, us as the dealers, guess what? We clean the nice little chips. We dip them in like, the whole disinfected. That's basically that was one hell of a New Year's time. So that's one hell of a that was one of the big things that I remember, closely, fondly remember, when I was dealing one of those days. Other things too. Geez, I mean, some were pretty nuts. I mean, things that I just wouldn't have imagined, like, seeing in the industry. But of course, obviously, if you've been around and you've dealt enough so-called, hands and whatnot, we literally had to change the entire so-called baccarat dealing, so-called patterning, solely because of this one so-called incident. Now, back in the day, this was in 2000, exactly 2000. It was just really easy. Basically, the casino was corporate. I guess they basically worked with some kind of, a third-party shuffling company and whatnot. And every time we basically, did the whole baccarat thing, it would just come pre-shuffled inside of a deck and whatnot. Though we would just simply, give the players the cut cards and whatnot, cut it right away, boom. So okay, all's good and everything like that. We're dealing our hands out perfectly fine. And granted, this was on a large table, about $100 minimum table at the time, and people were betting, a couple of grand each hand. Halfway through the shoe, now people were basically, I would say it was probably like one of those shoes that most people were basically losing money on. And halfway, I think, through the entire shoe, one card out inside of the entire so-called shoe became face up, literally like there. And it just created a gigantic ruckus. Like every single player basically banded together, and basically, demanded that, it's a completely like, rigged or whatever. It was like they basically crowd foul, through that event. And, it basically held the game up for several hours. It basically went through half of my entire shift. But ultimately, in the end, everybody in the entire table got their money back, refunded to them.
Wow.
Believe it or not, I've never seen a casino ever refund money before.
Wow.
Literally. You're talking about, like, if I was going to just give a ballpark guess of how much money was refunded, probably around the 70 grand range, throughout the entire table. And they just had to refund it. They just basically closed the entire game, and literally like in like 2 days, new protocol was met. We basically all had to basically fan out every single so-called, basically all the entire 8 decks to make sure, like, there was no face-up cards, and obviously do just a normal regular ending of the blackjack shuffle. Boom, back in, and then that was one hell of a freaking ruckus. I can tell you that. I literally, because like I would think to myself, like, okay, I'm on break, they'll figure it out in like 30 minutes, it'll be all back, we're gonna all play ball. Well, no, basically we were just basically, tapping each other out back and forth, basically just sitting and just waiting for basically, the upper management to figure out what on earth they were going to do. I mean, they had to call like a lot of people for that. So that was one hell of a thing too as well. It's insane. It's crazy. You just could not believe it.
I haven't. So Danny, Mike, have you ever heard of anybody getting paid off anything like that for the,
No, not a whole shoe. I mean, that's no,
That's
I've
crazy.
never seen that.
Oh wow.
The
Unshuffled shoe belt at the Palace.
Yeah.
Now I heard So if you're talking about an unshuffled shoe, though, I wasn't in the casino though, but there was a big ruckus on the East Coast as well, though. One unshuffled deck basically caused, I believe it was the Golden Nugget, to lose like a massive amount of money, and then obviously, funny enough though, the judge basically ruled in favor of the players and whatnot, because obviously the players wouldn't have known when the shoe would have possibly potentially, I guess, came back to shuffled order if it was going to be shuffled somewhere in between though. But yeah, that was one hell of a thing too though. So I guess unshuffled shoes could potentially happen, but man, it's just insane like how it just sometimes changes an entire industry like over, so Yeah.
And they refunded just on like one card being face up. Like the only thing that's ever happened like that is there was like we opened the new decks of cards every time, and then someone in like my pit, they didn't take the jokers out, and they were on the table, and jokers started coming out of the automatic shuffler.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, that's. I mean, those things you just can't like ever replicate or duplicate ever. You just go through them, and then you're like, wow, at the one of a kind, type of events though. And that's what I love about this type of industry though. You every day that we go in, you just never know what on earth you're going to find and stuff like that though. It's almost like a it's just completely new reset, day by day.
I was working back home and a friend of mine was, we were living in this house, and a few of us were working in different casinos, but we're all living in the same house. And a friend of mine was working in this one casino. I wasn't there, but he was, and he said on a back of the table, it wasn't the full one, it was kind of like the sit down one.
Yep.
And so there was these guys playing whatever, and they turned around, and I think it was not long after the casino had opened in the daytime, and so the pit bosses come over, and it was a woman, so she's watching the table and whatever, and this player turned around and went poof and knocked her completely out. And so there's all a big ruckus, and all these guys, dealers and everything, grabbing this guy, and they drag him out, and it's big, this trying to get this pit boss. You're like, oh my god, what's going on? This is crazy. So they drag him out. While that's all going on, one of the other players brought out a replica shoe and switched it. They stole the shoe. And so by the time they dragged them out, they had all this confrontation. They all sat there, and they were all in there. All these players were in on it, and so they dragged the guy out, banned him, whatever. So they carried on playing him, and they knew the entire shoe. So they knew everything was going to win, tie everything.
That's crazy. So they actually were able to distract the eye in the sky. They actually were able to distract them enough. They're like, there's a big ruckus right here. Switch shoes.
Yeah, because it was like everybody's focus went on this guy, and he knocked out this poor girl, and it was all this, and they just switched the shoe out, and they dealt the shoe, and then as soon as it was done, poof, all the guys took off.
So did they actually got away with it?
Yeah, they didn't realize till afterwards, because all the security, the small casinos back in Britain, they may have like two people watching the cameras, whatever.
Oh, and, that's right. That's right.
So it's not, this was only like a smaller casino, right? It wasn't like a big, like Vegas size casino. So this is only a small one, right? So sometimes, the cameras will flick through, like they'll go through the rotation, right? So it wasn't until like, okay, this incident happened. So now they're focusing on, okay, what's up with the girl and all the security, whatever, they're trying to get the guys out.
Right.
Yeah. So they switched the shoe, and then they knew the entire sequence.
Yeah, I mean, and stuff like that, you just can't imagine could possibly happen. But I mean, and I can imagine in a small casino, you cannot, your budget is pretty tight already. I can't imagine that could have been a great night for them. My gosh. And that's actually brings me back to another actual story on the cruise ship that I worked on, and it was in New York, where I'm from originally. You couldn't gamble on, well, at least not at the time though. Nowadays they actually do have casinos in New York, but you couldn't gamble in New York at the time. So what they did they did a little quote unquote casino cruise. So they would take you approximately, I believe it was 2.5 miles away from shore and whatnot though, and you're quote unquote on international waters, and hence it was legit. Well, this casino, this boat basically was, I could swear it was probably owned by the Russian mob. Everybody was Vlad, Gregory, and Roman, all these people looking like they look pretty mafia-ish, but hey, I'm just Joe Schmo. I'm just dealing cards here and whatnot. So they would do a lot of pretty gnarly tactics, to try to I guess sway odds in their favors, even though obviously every casino game is basically already swayed in their favor anyways. So, and they did everything pretty gnarly. I mean, you had a $10 table that had a $100 maximum table max and whatnot. And anytime basically a dealer was, I guess, sort of cold and basically players were on a hot streak, they would just routinely just be tap this person out, to try to get that one single burn card out of blackjack. Man, that made us look completely what's the English term? Prats. You know, we looked like complete prats at the time. Like, it was just not cool. Like, you know, that was, and here's the thing too. Like, you know, whatever they wanted to do, you know, I get that they probably were under budgeted. They probably should not have had no business opening up a casino at the time and whatnot, though. But like, basically, what they basically all did was basically round up all the dealers, and then they basically started doing anything that they could to try to, like I said, sway the odds in their favors. So we had anything from basically, you know, tapping out at random to like basically, you know, changing the entire blackjack shuffle to something that you've never seen before in your entire life. I mean, I just have never seen something like that. So hence, I mean, you know, it was pretty gnarly, you know, and you know, to that own degree, yeah, I mean, I would have to say that it was one hell of a freaking experience too. And the problem is that, like, obviously, you know, after players are seeing that, you know, they don't want to tip a dealer, you know, thinking that, like, obviously everybody's out there to get me, you know. So the toke rate was absolute shite, if you will, you know, in your own terms. And, you know, one of the most hilarious stories was that, like, you know, this person was table max at $100. The guy was on a hot streak while I was dealing. So, you know, good old Russian just tells me, you know, hey, you know, stop dealing, you know, you're going to get tapped out. You're going to go on to 3-card poker. He taps me out. I go to 3-card poker. 2 hands later, I dealt somebody like a straight flush, 40-1. 40-1 right. Just great, man. Just like, you know, I just ruined their day and whatnot, though. And yeah, I mean, I had a nickname of basically being like the charity giver, you know, on the social photo. So I mean, it may be popular though, but at the same time, though, we were pulling our tokes though, so it was shite, you know, to say the least. But the one suspicious thing about, so I was working there only for the summertime. It was just like a little summer gig and whatnot, though. Literally right after I left, approximately a few days later, right before the cruise, basically everybody was about to board the cruise. People basically, a whole bunch of like masked people basically stormed the place and robbed the so-called safe and ran. And it was just a big thing, and they never caught the so-called robbers, and it just feels a little suspicious to me, you know, that this casino that you know is kind of like, you know, going down under, you know. It's like, I have no proof. Sorry, this is not any kind of accusation, but it's, to me, is a bit daunting, you know, about that. So yeah, it's crazy. Just can't imagine, like, you know, what that could possibly like endure. So yeah,
I worked on a gambling ship. I was 23 out of San Diego, and it used to sail like a daily cruise down from San Diego down to Ensenada in in Mexico. And Ensenada at the time was Mexico's biggest tuna port, so it stunk. The place was just like, all you could smell was like, oh, you get off the ship, and they'd have all the tuna ships there, and you'd dock next to it. And it used to take us 4 hours to go down there, and I think we used to leave like, it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and we get there at 1. They spend 4 hours in Ensenada, and all the, you know, the bars and stuff were packed. And because they could come on the ship and they could gamble at 18, and they could, you know, drink at 18, and the legal age was 21, it used to be filled with like kids just getting absolutely hammered from the moment they got on. They get up in Mexico, party like crazy, and on their way back, the casino was always busy. And they were just completely incoherent. It was crazy. Oh, did we lose Rob, or did my internet's off?
No, I think we did.
No, I think we lost Rob.
Okay, as soon as we mentioned San Diego, it was like, I'm out of here.
You're like,
you
like a
tore it
little
down.
Uh-oh. Oh, so what's Roxanne saying? We had a roulette game once where all colors were out and New York style betting. I think 8 or something was hit, and a guy got past his number, never hit. I'm assuming that's pissed. His number never hit. Reached in and scrambled all the chips on the way out. It took hours on my God, on security to try and figure it out. Finally, they just asked everybody, okay, what they had about the number, and just paid whatever the player said. Ended up paying out a couple of thousand on the number. Oh, for sure. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Wow.
Well, he says his battery died. He'll join us soon.
Okay.
All right.
I had a manager tell a boxman to change a dice. He did that in the middle of a row. Punters all went nuts. Oh, I've seen that. Oh my God. When I was on the ships, dice getting changed mid-roll. Oh my God. Yeah. And they used to call it, I don't think they do it. Remember Mike, when he used to say, if you call him winners on the stick, they used to say you were singing.
Yep.
Do you ever hear that? Oh my God. Yeah. But there was one manager, his name was Mark, and he would go crazy. He'd be like, get that singing guy off the stick. And he would get mad. And oh yeah, some people are just crazy.
Yeah, we had a couple. Oh my God, if it's the same Mark I'm thinking of, he was still on there. Yeah, I think so. He went nuts. He's called you a singer, and would be throwing salt and changing dealers. You're one roll on stick, and you're gone. You don't call it Benny. You're gone. Whoa, settle down.
So,
hey, Jay's here.
Jay's here. It's all good.
Hopefully Rob will jump on right away. He's got to charge his battery. I don't know if they have plugs in Hawaii. Hopefully they do.
I'm pretty sure that happened to me on my first Wednesday as well. I'm pretty sure like my battery died too.
Yeah, I think that was like the worst.
Yeah, I think it's happened to all of us. I mean, I remember one time I came down. I'm in my basement right now, and I didn't bring the cable for my laptop, and it just died. It's just like boom, see ya.
Yep.
Right in 7 under the layer. Oh God, yeah. It's amazing how superstitious people are. Yep. Both in the casino and outside, eh?
I had somebody, I remember I was dealing dice and then like a player came and they just put like some candies under the craps table and they were like, just leave them there. They're good luck. I was like,
Oh, of course they are.
That's funny. Okay, I think our guest is here now, so I will see you guys in a little bit. And let's switch up.
All right, technical difficulties. Sorry about that, guys.
Hey, Rob, it's all good.
Yeah, Johnny, you're black. Is that norm?
I'm. It's probably my Wi-Fi's messed up.
It's your Wi-Fi. Never mind. It's shite.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
I where it like cuts in half because it like shakes a little.
Oh yeah. I know.
So Rob, actually, we got a question from you.
Yeah, sure.
You. It says, so Debbie's asking, Rob, do you think a casino would be operating in Hawaii? And she actually hopes they don't.
Yeah, so in Hawaii, obviously every single year for the past, I got to say several decades already, people have been trying to lobby for like casinos to open here. But obviously it always gets shut down because obviously a lot of times people feel that, a casino here would probably, raise the so-called oppression rate, over here. I mean, we have our fair share of, homelessness already though, and they don't want anything to contribute to that though. So, Hawaii for the time being, for now, is basically, there's probably not likely going to be any casino until some type of really, really big major thing happens. I mean, in some cases, I kind of do agree too. I mean, on one hand, I am kind of like thinking like, well, Hawaii is kind of, unfortunately, in a lot of debt. They're in the toilet for a massive billions upon billions of dollars because basically they under budgeted something known as the rail project, which is the very first above ground train system basically. So they decided to build a train like this started over a decade ago, and I think the budget was started off at this is going to cost us about only about 1.2 billion at the time, and then all of a sudden they found out that we're short by 5 billion, and now they still need more money afterwards. So it's just been a shite show to say the least with the project. So I think to myself like, well, what else can you do? I mean, if you open a casino here, there's enough people here in Hawaii who really want to have a casino, quote unquote, over here. But at the same time, though, there's a lot of, people locally also who don't want it because obviously, it can potentially, lead to more so-called oppression here on the islands. So, yeah.
I had no idea. Edmonton's city council run Hawaii's budget too. So that's
really crazy. It's nuts. But yeah, I mean, it's so the rail project is still happening. And I'll tell you something very funny, actually. Speaking of, and this is on topic of casinos. Hawaii, actually, funny enough, at one point, and this was, I want to say approximately 3 years ago, they actually tried to have quote unquote a pseudo quote unquote casino and whatnot. They were doing something known as a sweepstakes type of a loophole where basically so they had these games that were, I mean, I'm pretty certain you guys are kind of familiar with like these like coin dozing type games where you would feed coin to the machine and it would just basically try to bulldoze coins down the slot basically to try to get more money through. So they tried to open quote unquote these things, claiming that it was basically like a sweepstakes. Basically, you didn't have to pay money to hypothetically win something. You're getting something free. Apparently, I think it was they gave you every time you entered the facility, they would give you essentially a phone card that was basically good for 1 minute of talk time with whatever the hell that was. That was supposedly supposed to be a loophole for them to basically legalize this stuff though. But boy, eventually it just got shut down and everything just shut down like all over the place though. So they couldn't get away with it. They still deemed that as basically gambling and whatnot. And throughout this pandemic, I mean, lots of these little underground, of course, who doesn't know about the underground? Most of the times if you're living in a big city and that doesn't have gambling, well, there's an underground market for that. So obviously people can, go to the underground to basically go get their so-called, gaming on. But again, lots of those places have, been shut down left and right, to no surprise, because people are very, people are very so-called chillaxed here, where they basically don't vet anybody and whatnot. So if you're, any kind of undercover person could just simply, gain info about where this underground is, and they'd just be let in. All right, there it is. Sting operation shut down. Bah, It's the feds. That's so
awesome.
Aloha.
Yeah, aloha. So
when I used to work on casinos, when I used to work in casinos, when I used to work on ships, the last ship that I worked on, I used to go from New York to Bermuda, and we'd have 3.5 days off, and they used to have like a fest, I can't remember what festival it was, but it was one time a year when they'd have legal gambling in Hawaii. Sorry, in Bermuda, and it was
Bermuda,
it was all like this, like carnival games. Wow. But everybody would go crazy. They used to have like a big cricket match, and it was just like this weekend. I think it was a weekend, but it was just like a really fun time.
Yep.
But it would all like the games you'd see at like carnivals where you're like, why am I playing this? It's a complete ripoff. It's like there's nothing else to gamble on, so I have to play it.
Yep.
Yeah, like here when you have like like the K Days and Stampede, those kind of rip-off games.
Yeah, the basically the true scams, basically, the games that you basically have no way of basically, really like, getting your money's worth out of it though. Kind of like basically the adult version of Dave and Buster's, if you will, spend $1,000 and you get like, I don't know, $100 item or something like that. So kind of like that though. I mean,
it's pretty much the casino in Vegas Vacation, right?
It is, right? It is. Gosh. Yeah. I mean, and here's and on that same note though, I love it going in like, being a dealer though, you actually have people who actually come into the casino actually think that they're going to be able to beat the system. Guys, for the record, you are not going to beat math. The math is there. It's a certainty. You're not going to be able to win in the long term, and you have regulars. I mean, I'm certain you guys all have regulars that, he and she. And those people usually already are kind of cool with it. They already know. But then there are some people who just kind of come in actually expecting to win money and stuff like that, though. And, most of the time they take it in stride and whatnot. Actually, as a matter of fact, most of the most cordial people that I've met were actually the people who actually lose like thousands and thousands of dollars in the high stake. It's the people who basically blow like $10 and $15 that are like the most like pissed, of their game. They're like, I lost like, my $100. You just ruined my day. Like, I'm like, sorry. What can I tell you? It's like. So that to me is like, always entertaining to watch and stuff like that. And people who have like, all these special systems. I love systems, of so-called betting to try to like, hack the so-called, games, so to speak, and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. So okay, Rob. So I have a question. So, what is something that you've applied in your position or in life that you've picked up from your time in the casino industry?
Well, dude, like in the casino industry. So here's the thing, like, it's funny. So I never really had to basically apply for anything, other than casino related that, would have benefited me. However, though, I am very quick with numbers after, being in the industry already. I find myself basically, doing like, all these different number in equations like really, really quickly. So it's been a wonderful so-called benefit to that, and especially when you basically deal and stuff like that, though, eventually things just become so automatic that you basically do things, in your sleep. That's kind of like, part of it already. Like just kind of like the same way where, we can just basically grab an entire stack and this is a full stack of 20s already just in our hands without even having to like, count it though. Everything just almost comes from muscle memory though. So I have to just definitely credit the casino industry for at least, making me at least sharp, in the mathematics of like, calculating equations pretty quickly though. In terms of, other things like, that I've applied, with the position though, I've, went through different like, after the so-called, industry, I've basically went to like, becoming like a teacher's assistant to it though. So I've taught, helped, a so-called academy that basically teaches deals. It's a dealing school essentially, help, the other rest of dealers, get their certifications and whatnot, though they're all scattered all over the US right now. Some are in California, lots of them on the East Coast, Connecticut, New Jersey, like in Atlantic City. And, I've met a whole bunch of them in Vegas, same people that I've actually taught like, decades ago, which is the most insane thing, because I'm like, what on earth are you doing here in Vegas, out of everywhere? But, lots of times though, they just say that, they like it there because, they don't have to shovel the snow. I don't know. So,
that's a good reason to be like to move, especially being as where we're from. We get a lot of snow,
right? Yeah. So they're like, yeah, you know what though, you barely see ever an inch of snow and whatnot though in Vegas, and if it's cold and stuff like that though. But that's about it though. So yeah, it's quite interesting, like running into the people that I've taught like decades and decades ago and stuff like that though, and we still have all the great stories like as if it was just yesterday. So yeah, that was fantastic. Yep.
Mike, what about you? Because now that you're like pretty much out of casino, well, you're out of casinos. Anything you still use that you learned from casinos?
Yeah, well, I think customer service is a big one, right? I think we've all taken that and still have that, but maybe the ability to read people is kind of a bigger one. To judge people's reactions, how to talk to different types of people, right? We all know there's different types of people, and that may not be gambling, but we all know kind of how they're going to react to a certain situation. So you talk to them accordingly. And I think the way that casino industry people can read other people is something that is an overlooked but highly valued aspect of the position that you have.
No, I think that's cool. So one of the things, because I spent a long time, and I think a lot of us have, on a craps table. And I know when we originally started on stick, I for one hated it for a long time, and then I kind of grew to like it, and I was like, oh man, this is so much fun, and I thought okay with it. But so now it kind of like, I'm not too bad at public speaking anymore, because I go back to like, well, I don't mind standing in front of people now and talking, because when you're still on a table shouting in front of a whole empty casino, you kind of get used to it and saying silly things, whatever. So the whole public speaking now is not as daunting as it previously was. Right. And I teach financial literacy courses for United Way, and I've been doing them over Zoom. So I think a lot of that stems like how I find it now is because of the like working in casinos and the ability to kind of like stand up in front of people and talk and have a laugh and a joke and don't care if you look like an idiot.
Exactly. And
yeah, we're not afraid to embarrass it.
Nope, there's no shame at all, and especially like you said, if you're at stick and whatnot, all marketing is all your entire game. You're basically marketing to be like, yo, throw me any type of so-called sucker bet at me you possibly can, guys. All the prop bets and stuff like that. Though, just market, just do the hard sell on everybody, all throughout and stuff. Yeah, absolutely, I can definitely see that. Definitely, bringing an advantage to it, though. I mean, the casino industry, sometimes, like I said, though, people would love it, and sometimes it could be just a nightmare for people, though. I was one of those people who absolutely loved, doing doing it. I mean, I had a passion to basically, love it, because to be quite honest with you, it really was not a horrible job. I mean, it was really, what they give to you, and basically like, all the different people that you meet along the way. It's definitely almost like a one of a kind. It's almost not replicatable. There's one time, I mean, to be honest with you, it beats, in my opinion, sitting behind an office, like doing 9 to 5 and grinding, all day long and being miserable and stuff like that. So I was one of those people who absolutely loved, like, having like a completely full table where I can always stay busy. I know of some people who just claim that they love just being completely empty table where they're just doing nothing. I absolutely hate that. I mean, that to me, like, time basically goes so slow when you have an absolutely empty table and not doing nothing through and stuff.
I agree. I cannot stand that.
I can't stand that.
No way.
I don't get how no way, right? You want nice and busy. Time goes by just like that, and boom, your shift is over and stuff. And then if you want to be a degen, you just go to the casino, like the competing casino next door. We all knew each other. All the pit bosses, floor people, dealers came to us, and then we came to them and whatnot, though, because we had Mohegan Sun and we had Foxwoods. The two big major players down in Connecticut, at the time and stuff. And we all knew each other. It was great. It was just absolutely great. They even give you comp rooms, and shows you how much of a degen you can be. Yep.
Okay, so Rob, in your opinion, what was the best break schedule for a casino employee? 45 on, 15 off, out on, 15 off, or something different?
No, I mean, so I only experienced hour on and 15 off, but you know what though? Just having like literally like the 15 off itself was just amazing already to me. I don't know of many other jobs that can actually top that type of deal where every hour that you basically goes by, you basically go to the so-called break room. And especially like I don't know how the break rooms are in the rest of the places, but I mean our break room was essentially like an all-you-can-eat buffet basically. I mean back there and whatnot though, there was just this whole freaking plethora of food, coffee, beverages. It was great. So definitely for me, the hour on, 15 off, I'm used to. 45 minute, 15 off, I would imagine would be even, your day would go by even quicker, for that. The lunch breaks, I don't know. Maybe no, I don't know. I have no clue. No? Yeah, okay. Danny says no. I have no experience on that one. The only experience I have is hour on, 15 off and whatnot. So, and it was perfectly fine. I didn't, there was no so-called issues with those scheduling for lunch.
Danny, what's your favorite?
I like hour and 15. I find that because if you're doing 45 on, 15 off, your break is on the same time every hour, right? So I would always be looking, and it's like okay, it's just an hour gone by now. Whereas if it's an hour and 15, sometimes I'm on the table, and that 15 minutes really doesn't do that much, but it makes it feel like it goes by slower for me. I don't know.
Really?
My used to be 45-15, had to be, and now we're doing hour and 15s, and it's so much better. I'm so happy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Mikey?
You know what? I think I'd have to go with hour 20s. It depends what your rotation you're on, hey?
Yeah,
that's
true.
I think hour and 20s. It gives you enough time on the table that you can look forward to the ending if it's a really crappy table, or if you have a really good table, you can stay on it for a little bit. You have a little bit more time on it. 20 minutes gives you enough time to eat, reset, get a drink, have your smoke, whatever, what have you. I like hour 20s the best, actually.
Nice. I'm with you, Mike. I used to hate it where 15-minute breaks, and it gave you enough time basically to walk up to the staff room, have a cigarette, drink a coffee way too fast, complain about the players on the table, and then go, okay, I'll eat next time, and I'll eat next time. And then you're like, oh, no, probably won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that habit's definitely stuck with me, though. Even though we've not been working for a year, I've been I still eat way too fast. I cannot stop. I'm always done before everybody else around me because I'm just so used to eating super, super fast now. So.
And I think it was always funny. I think when like a casino person went out for dinner, like say with their family who eat like a normal person, because you're so used to going like when you're in a casino, you're like, okay, I'm going to eat and not talk. You're like, you eat. It's like, what is he doing? Why is he eating like that? This isn't prison. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, this is my eating break. Nobody talk to me.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Yep.
Okay, so here's another question we got. So,
Sure.
what is something that you would bring back to the industry that is not there now? And this is everybody.
Ooh. So for myself personally, though, so I don't know where you guys are at and whatnot, though, if it's still prevalent over there, though. But nowadays, the big baccarat table is basically non-existent. I mean, the actual physical Frank Sinatra heydays, like, baccarat where people are passing the shoe around, and it was like, a whole, like I said, there was a little, ambiance, if you will, associated like dealing those games. But like nowadays, I think a lot of those have been kind of phased out for like Macau style baccarat, which is essentially like, basically been like squeezing your cards on basically a mini bac table. That has probably predominantly prevailed basically all throughout the East Coast now, and Las Vegas as well. Although I did hear though that I believe is it Caesar's Palace might still have actually the large tables, but that's about it though. That's almost basically becoming an extinct thing. And actually another thing that also I have to also rant about too though is face up Paigao poker. Like that thing has dominated Las Vegas like a plague. Like, so there's no more anticipation, any kind of like excitement and whatnot though. After you get all the cards and whatnot, dealer just quickly flips it over, and then now you just basically try to compare your cards to try to beat the dealer and whatnot though. So it's just a completely different like feeling and whatnot though. And of course, obviously, it's a sucker game too. It's another excuse for the casino not to basically take out the so-called commissions and whatnot. Because I believe if the dealer has an ace high, it's a push unless you bet the sucker bet of the ace high. For it. That's how it works. The casino always wins somehow. Stuff. So yeah, things like that. I really wish that would come back, to fruition if anything.
Danny, what about you? What do you think that we would like to bring back?
Well, I haven't been in the industry for very long, but I just I've seen like photos and stuff, and like I don't know, I really liked the way dealers used to dress. I wish that the uniforms were nicer, a little classier.
You mean a nice and elegance? It was.
Yeah, I think that would be nice.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, there's not too many places in the industry. Although I believe Monte Carlo, like actual physical Monte Carlo, not the Monte Carlo in Las Vegas, but actual physical Monte Carlo, still has like that big upper end, I guess like camaraderie inside of a casino, because they have actually dress codes in the casino, so you cannot just walk in there with like your t-shirts and your shorts and whatnot. So, because back in the day, I believe gambling used to be for aristocratic people, or at least people who had a lot of money. I mean, it was not really paid for like Joe Schmo, but obviously. Nowadays, basically, if you have money, fair game, come right in. Does not matter what what it is. So it definitely took the whole gaming industry has definitely morphed, throughout its decades for sure, and everything. Yep.
Mikey, you're old. What would you bring back?
Shit. Thanks. Danny took mine actually, and to go along with I touch a class back to the industry, right? I mean, there's a lot of I know, you kind of like just walking off the street. You're in your tank top and your shorts and your Crocs, and you come in and everything. I think when
Crocs?
Even when we were, there's Crocs all over the place. I think, go back to the tuxedos, maybe, a nice suit and tie and everything going around with the staff anyways.
Even just like a nice vest would be nice too.
Yeah, it is, because I think back to the old Rat Pack era and everything, and looking at, the James Bond scenes and everything like that. Yes, we'll never get there. I get that, right? Yes. Our casinos aren't that way, but I mean, I think there could be a little more class to them.
Yeah.
When I was working back home in London, I worked in a Mayfair is a really high end area of London, and I worked in a high end casinos, and we used to deal in tuxedos. Everybody had to wear all the dealers wore tuxedos, the pit bosses obviously had tuxedos, and the girls were in like formal wear. Yeah, there was a dress code in there. You had to pay a membership to go to the casino, and it was a ton of money. And like they used to get like, I remember there was like Japanese princesses used to come in there, and they used to have their own. I think they were purple. They had these purple Rolls Royces that sometimes the high end players would say, "Can you come and pick me up?" And they would send a Rolls Royce to go pick them up, and they come back and they come and play, drink, eat, whatever. But in that same casino, they had what you're talking about, that the baccarat table, the full one with
the full on one.
Oh, that was the only time I ever really wanted to deal baccarat, because it looked so cool. The two dealers would stand up, then the person on the pallet would take the cards, and and they had the calls, and they drop them in the box thing. That was cool. It was very sophisticated, and there was a ton of money going on there. And that was like, oh man, maybe I should deal it. And I'd be like, it's still baccarat. But that was the only time I thought baccarat was cool.
Yes. I totally agree. So, and I mean, it kept you sharp though. I don't know, like back where I was working and stuff, you had to pay the money first and then do the commissions afterwards. So like the minute you pay somebody, usually somebody just quickly nabs their freaking like money away, and you have to literally remember, usually at least 3 at a time minimum, every time you're paying somebody and whatnot. And you had to basically all do the whole. It kept you very, very sharp. That's the one thing that I gotta definitely say, from the experiences too. But I can kind of understand though. I mean, people, it's all about the so-called bottom line and stuff like that, though. They don't have to hire that many people to like, man one table, versus like, having separate tables for each dealer nowadays though. So yeah, I mean, one day I have to definitely go visit Mayfair though. That sounds like an awesome freaking experience. I want to be in a James Bond environment, like Mike said, that's basically what it was. As a matter of fact, actually, funny that you mentioned James Bond though. I had a James Bond themed wedding where we did have a casino actually in the whole venue and whatnot though. So hence, I'm a big, huge James Bond, fan and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. That there's just absolutely that type of like, elegance, and it's very, very difficult to, get that kind of feeling nowadays. Especially, you go around. I mean, we had anybody can be anybody, obviously, and people can walk in there with like paint stained like t-shirts and like grab like a whole like brown bag and dump out like 80 grand on your table like instantaneously and without like a blink of an eye type of a deal nowadays. So we're living in definitely, at least in a different era, at least from what it used to be, the Rat Pack, like you said. Yep,
we are. I agree. I agree. And Rob, I know it's only 20 after 5 your time. It's 20 after 9 my time. I get up at about 4:30 in the morning, so I gotta take off.
Understood.
It's good chatting with you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yep. And not playing against you.
You'll have your so-called rematch, I'm certain, like down the road.
We'll get it one day.
Absolutely. All right, cheers. Have a wonderful evening.
All right, Rob.
See you later, Mikey.
See you later, Mikey. Mikey goes to bed, guys. We got to do that. What is that? We have to do that announcement. Mike has left the building. Mike has left the building. Hey, we have a newcomer, Jay. We have a newcomer here, guys.
It's a familiar face.
Familiar face.
Jay, you're muted.
You're muted.
No, I was just miming, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Of
course you were.
Just read my lips on the podcast.
There he is.
Well, thanks everyone for being on. Totally appreciate it. And I was eating tater tots while you guys were talking, and stuffing my face and listening to some really awesome stories. So
sounds amazing. Actually, I want tater tots now.
I went to was it the Taco Bell, and I was like, they call them Mexi fries. I was like, I'll have some of those. And you're like, hang on a minute, they're just tater tots. That's just
yes, they are. Yes, they are. Tater tots, lots of MSG. Love it. Oh.
Yeah.
MSG.
MSG is underrated.
It is. It is so underrated, guys. MSG. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Love it.
So, Rob, I just had a question. So,
sure.
Are you a foodie? Because like when I first started chatting with you, I kind of saw like your Instagram and you had like.
Yeah, I used to. So I used to formerly be a chef, and I used to own a restaurant here in Hawaii. For about 5 years in the past and whatnot, though. So yes, I'm certified foodie as well and everything. So yes, hence most of my posts and whatnot are all basically food related because food is photogenic like instantaneously. Like there's food porn everywhere. And I absolutely love food. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, I just I just remember one of your recent posts because you did just get the pig. So then you were like showing the picture, and then I was seeing plates of food after. I'm like, I don't know if you should be putting this too.
Yeah. It's just like, it's like before and then after. Like, no, guys, the pig is our pet. In case everybody's like, are you gonna grow him big and fat and whatnot, and then eat him later? I'm like, no, it's our pet. It's part of the familia now. Cersei is part of the family. She's becoming a diva. So, what else can I say? Yeah.
So, do you ever take your pig for a walk?
I will begin actually walking her when she's a little bit. So we have a harness right now. Actually, it's a piggy harness for her, but she doesn't quite fit in it yet, though. So give her probably another month and she'll probably start walking around and whatnot. And of course, obviously, when you walk a pig, everybody's just gonna break their necks doing it and whatnot. Is that a pig? Be like, yes. So yeah, we'll begin walking her, as soon as possible.
That is awesome. You need to take pictures of you taking your pig for a walk.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll post it everywhere. I'll spam it. It'll just go viral, and I'll plug in Jay's. Be like Casino Dealer Jay. Like what is happening to you? Like Casino Dealer Jay. That's it. Nothing. Nothing else. Doing a nice little plug for you guys.
Rob, I just want to say, Danny sat there with her cat like a Bond villain. She sat there like.
I know you're like petting him and stroking him and whatnot. Yeah, the problem with pigs is that they're very different from cats and dogs and whatnot. So, Danny's cat is very chillax and whatnot. The same thing, dogs will kind of be chillax. Though pigs don't like it when you actually lift them completely up and they have their 4 legs kind of like in the air and whatnot, though, because they don't feel anything on the surface. So that's like insta squeal basically right over there. And at this moment, she's extremely curious. They act as if they're basically 3-year-olds and whatnot, though. So they'll just basically get into everything and anything and stuff. So, to say the least, though, relatively significantly easier for now to take care of than a dog, in my opinion. I have 2 dogs.
Had a pig.
Yeah.
And then, turns out you're not allowed to have pet pigs in the city limit. So
there's different zoning.
to a farm.
There's different zoning, laws depending on where you're at and stuff like that. Though here, Hawaii is kind of pretty chillaxed and whatnot. Though they allow it's funny because you can read up all these quirks inside of the city rules, and everybody's allowed to have basically 2 chickens per household, on and whatnot. Though, so if you want your own fresh organic eggs and whatnot, though, here you go. You can rear your own chickens and whatnot, though, because randomly, if you ever come here and visit. Or if you haven't come here and visit yet, once in a while you'll just have a random chicken walking up to you while you're sunbathing in the beach, and it's just a random chicken. It's just like, hi, you want to throw me a piece of your bun or something. So yeah, that's how the quirkiness, living here so far for about nearly 9 years. Actually, come November it'll be 9 years actually. So, yep.
So, Rob, what are you doing now?
So currently right now, I own real estate that I rent out for the long term and whatnot, though, with my wife. And I'm professional options trader. I write options for the stock market. So every day here in Hawaii, I have like a very, very early weird schedule though. I have to wake up at 3 a.m. 30 minutes prior to the market opening and whatnot though. But that's essentially what I do nowadays full time. So I'm already done with my 9 to 5 grind and whatnot though, because I'm fortunate to be able to do so at the moment though. So, you know, if you guys ever want to learn and whatnot though, I'm more than happy to like, you know, show you guys the ropes, if anything. That's essentially what I've been doing this entire pandemic, was basically, you know, teaching and helping, you know, people who are just getting started in investing, basically, because that's basically all, at least here in America, that's basically what a lot of like, you know, younger people have been doing, is actually learning, you know, how to invest, you know, early, which is actually, to be quite honest with you, pretty crucial. Because if you're talking about like, you know, growing money in the long term, you know, for a long term so-called like scope and goal and stuff like that though, the earlier that you invest, the quicker you'll basically be able to retire, essentially. I think people here, at least in the United States, invest a little bit too late in life and whatnot though, so they don't have that head start and whatnot. But of course, you know, you have to invest money that you're not going to be able to touch, essentially, you know, for, you know, several, you know, at least 20 years down the road, you know, and then that way you can definitely compound, you know, your returns, you know, greatly from that. So, you know, that's a word of financial advice for a lot of people who are, you know, getting into, you know, the investing scene though. Invest as early as possible, learn, you know, as much as you can and whatnot though. Always put your money to work for you, because I don't know, here in the United States though, the leaving your money inside of the savings account is the most dreariest return you can possibly ever get. I think you can get better returns by finding like loose change underneath your pillow, you know, or your couch or something like that. They give you like literally next to nothing for leaving your money like in the bank and whatnot. So I always like, yeah, I'm always active in putting my money to work for me and stuff. So yep. So that's currently what I do right now. And you know, whatever else opens up to me, I don't know.
So that's a pretty cool, and it's I wouldn't say, I mean, like any kind of like investing is, realistically, it is kind of gambling too. It could be educated gambling. So
the big difference, so a lot of people ask me that, right? What's the difference between gambling? Because don't get me wrong, I gamble and I invest. There's those two different things that I would, you know, want to really decipher and so like that. So when you're investing, right, you're investing in a piece of a company. So generally speaking though, as long as the company is essentially doing well and whatnot though, your money is relatively safe, you know. So, and many times, you know, in the S&P 500 index, you know, here in the United States, you know, all of the heavily weighted stocks historically have always went higher through its so-called lifespan of it. That's why you can have that quote unquote upper edge when you so-called, you know, just simply, if let's just say you're just buying stock and whatnot though, that's more of like kind of like a 50-50 endeavor. But if you invest in solid companies and whatnot though, you'll probably likely always like, you know, grow your money, you know, at a very, very slow and steady rate though. What I do is a little bit different though. I actually skew the odds in my favor by selling options. So that's a little bit different than actually investing directly in stocks itself. Because obviously when you're in the casino industry, you know about the so-called odds and whatnot though. So when you're able to so-called sell options, you're essentially almost like acting like you're the house of a casino and whatnot. In the long term, you have a positive expectancy rate when you do this type of so-called investing over, you know, just simply straight on just buying like, you know, stocks and just like, you know, hoping and that it's going to go up and whatnot. So that's, I would say, is a little bit different though. And again, like I said, though, if you guys are, you know, interested, like maybe off camera or whatnot, though, I can easily just like give you like examples of what I do and whatnot and stuff, you know, to just, you know, give you guys just a little sense of an idea of how it works here. Because a lot of times people don't know that you can do this type of stuff. You know, a lot of times people who are very, very new to investing, you know, think exactly like you say though, it's a gamble, right? People think that, you know, oh, you blow your money in the markets. You know, I always tell people, think about like, you know, quality over quantity. So what I would say a lot of novice investors make the biggest mistake is that they basically invest in very, very poor companies, meaning like they buy penny stocks because they can purchase thousands upon thousands of shares of it, and they're just hoping that this thing is going to be like the lottery ticket that's going to be, you know, that's going to make them rich. And once in a while, it could happen. But again, that would be considered probably likely a gamble. A company that has not been established, just starting up. But let's just say that you decide to throw your money in Apple, right? Apple is very unlikely to basically go underwater anytime soon or go belly up anytime soon. As a matter of fact, they just keep growing every single freaking year. It's a necessity almost around the world and whatnot, though. So even if you just basically left your money, just kind of like stagnant in there while you're collecting dividends and collecting the so-called, gain, on a yearly, which, if you invested in S&P 500, that's approximately like a 10% on average, give or take gain annualized, it'll grow. It'll grow. It's very unlikely you're going to lose 100% of your investment if you threw your money in, quality stocks like that. So it just depends on what you want to do, but lots of people who basically start off, though, they're starting off with very, very little money. They think to themselves, oh, can I, what should I do? Should I just buy like a few shares of Apple, or should I just buy like thousands of shares of this little penny stock that could potentially get me rich? Or, it's all in or nothing, basically. And that's basically essentially like gambling. That I could definitely say that is essentially like gambling, because you don't know, right? You don't really know the company's, what the company is going to basically forecast until, either it's going to make it or it's going to break it, right? And that's what it is. Yeah. So that's what I got to just say about that, though. But again, like I said, though, there are ways to basically consistently always make money, in the market. Through options specifically, though. I don't want to say buying stock is, the best way, because again, buying stock is just a 50-50 endeavor, where the minute you buy a stock, you need it to go up to make a profit and whatnot. Unless you short it, of course, and then it can go down. But for the most part, when people are talking about investing, they talk about buying stocks. Options have the beauty of basically being able to be played in any type of direction. It can be neutral, like a stock can just not move at all and you can make money. It can go higher, you can make money, or if it can go down, you can make money. So there's a lot of different so-called strategies out there that you can actually employ when you use options versus just simply just buying stock outright. So right now, I never buy any stock outright. I only simply write options, which basically, when I'm writing options, for those people who don't know and whatnot, it means I'm selling options, meaning I instantaneously sell a contract promising to purchase stock should it get to a price that I'm happy to buy it for. It's purchased and I collect money instantaneously from that. So that's a little different than what stock is, where you're paying money first and then you're hoping to sell it for a higher price. In this case, I'm basically selling and collecting money instantaneously first. So it's a little bit of a different ball game.
So you just doing it is this something you do for 8 hours a day? Like you said, you get up at 4 or whatever it is.
I do it. I don't have to do it all day long. It's just that I love, watching how the market, reacts and stuff like that. So I do stay up, but generally speaking, though, it's not something that I have to stay glued to the so-called screen for. I do not day trade like a lot of people who basically, love to do. They have all these I don't know, they have billions of screens all over the place looking like they're, some type of Bond villain, if you will. And then, they're trying to try to find the next move. And, here's the thing about it, though, and this is going to be very controversial to a lot of people who, might be investing or might be day trading, watching this and whatnot, though. But a lot of times, you have all these people think that, trading has to be so complicated where you're staring at charts all day. Guys, if you guys play Baccarat or roulette or anything like that, the charts don't mean jack. I'm sorry to tell you guys this, though. They basically fall under the gambler's fallacy. A lot of times people have all these weird chart patterns. I do not use charting, period, in my own entire investing career. Now, I have started using charts way back then when I started investing over nearly 20 years ago, but I found that there has been no so-called correlation with the so-called amounts of so-called profitable gains versus the charts that you basically are basically sort of trying to predict the so-called next movement, kind of like Baccarat. What does that mean if there's 18 banks in a row? What is the next one going to be? Player? I don't know. I mean, it's it might be, it might not be.
It's kind of like people have value in the, the roulette thing.
Correct. Yes, the roulette scoreboard, right.
Yeah, we've had all these red numbers. Well, it must be a black number.
Correct, and it's exactly what it is. It's the gambler's fallacy. Lots of people love to do that. I mean, I'm certain you guys have seen in the casino, people who love to you know, I don't know if you know the strategy known as the martingale, but you probably do, though, where every time you lose, you basically double and double and double until you basically try to win and hope that you don't basically blow your entire so-called, you know, whatever, bankroll up and whatnot, though. But essentially, yeah, I mean, you know, if the charting works, a casino would not give it to you. First of all, let's just get that very, very straight. It's clear. What a chart can do, which is what I like to tell people, is that it makes you feel more comfortable betting on one side over another. That's basically it. Or maybe it gives you an idea, gives you inspiration, la-da-da. But it's not giving you an edge, if that's what you want to think it is, you know? And the same thing where I would tell a lot of people that basically, you know, charting, you know, reading charts, you know, while you're investing in like the stock market, again, it does not give you an edge. You know, it's again, the market is random, guys. That's what I always like to tell people. People don't want to accept the fact that it is, which is amazing to me, but it's random. So instead of, you know, making anything random and trying to, like, you know, predict the next move, because here's the thing, if charts truly work, though, then basically, why are all these professional charters, first of all, even remotely losing money? Secondly, I can simply just, you know, a novice person can simply purchase, let's just say 100 shares of the SPY, which represents the S&P 500 index, and sell options known as covered calls against them, and they will outperform mostly almost nearly more than 90% of, like, you know, these quote unquote professional charters out there, you know, in terms of their portfolio. So what's really the so-called benefit, you know, in a chart if a novice can basically beat your so-called gains? Or, you know, that's my point, you know, for it. So, you know, it's what I do. You know, like I said, I love, that's why, you know, getting into the whole casino industry, I learn about gamblers' fallacies. I learn about, like, all these systems that do not work and stuff like that. Though, I mean, the only thing that I can definitely just say that, you know, in terms of gambling is concerned, you can win in the short term, you hit and run, sure. But the longer you sit, the longer you stay, the odds will grind you. Does not make a difference. You know, you can go on the streak, that's fine. Blackjack, perfect strategy with maybe card counting, sure, upper advantage, but hence, you know, they catch you card counting, they'll probably just basically tell you to leave, right? That's how it is. We had a few card counters, you know, on a few tables and whatnot, though, that basically were escorted out, just, you know, can't play, they don't want to deal with them, that's it, you know. But other than that, though, there's no edge, you know, guys. You know, when it comes to it, you guys know that, right? No system's is gonna beat this whole, like, you know, industry.
My favorite thing when it was like in casinos, you know, like you see streaks and, you know, whatever, it just happens.
Yes.
Tons of player, tons of bank, whatever. When somebody's like, "Oh, I'm going to bet against it," because it has to, you know, and then,
it has to revert, right? There's no way that
they just build some, like, "Oh, it's going to be it now." It's like you spin the ball, it's a 50-50 chance, basically.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Right. And the problem is that people, I think a lot of times people kind of, like, you know, like, humans are pattern-seeking creatures, right? That's basically what it is. And when you study psychology and stuff. And here's the thing about it is that all the objects that we're dealing with, cards, casino roulette balls, they are inanimate objects. They're not alive. They don't have memory. They do not care what the hell happened to, like, you know, the 20 hands in a row or whatnot. They are neutral to the elements, you know, and the entire universe, essentially. It doesn't care what you think or feel. So to think that, like, it has to revert is kind of, again, falling into the gambler's fallacy. Because, again, I mean, for myself, you know, dealing, I've seen, so the most amount of so-called, I've seen a 26 player in a row shoe, and I've seen a 28 banker in a row shoe, you know. I don't know if that's awesome. Sort of a, right.
That's awesome if you're actually with the player and the banker at the time.
Exactly. But funny enough, weirdly, during that shoe, though, the players actually did not make that much money. Weirdly enough, because a lot of times, again, people were kind of perplexed. People did not want to believe. So they were very, very hesitant to try to, like, hammer me. You know, I'm degenerate like that. You know, if I'm on a baccarat streak, though, I'm gonna parlay hard. I do not care. I am gonna parlay. I'm gonna push all in and be numb about it. You know, because if it's gonna streak, it's gonna streak. If it doesn't streak, it doesn't streak. Oh well, you know. But that's how I am. You know, I don't, you know, try to think that, oh yeah, you know, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Like you say, it's a 50-50 endeavor, if you will, you know, in the next thing. Every single hand is independent of each other. They do not have any kind of linkings to the hands prior and whatnot, which a lot of people, again, unfortunately fall under the so-called guise of. They think that it does, you know. I was always been, like, naturally unlucky, so I always used to lose, very rarely won.
So now the only kind of entertainment when I ever played was like, I just press it till it loses. And to me, like, yeah, it's like,
you wrote it,
like,
man.
Do you want to no, just keep pressing it. That's the entire, like, it's like, okay, so, you know, I start off like a minimum, I don't know, say it's $5, whatever, on a blackjack. I'm like, just keep pressing it. And like, what do you mean? Just, I don't care. Let's see how long it lasts, right? Because then once my money's gone, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll go see what my wife is doing.
That's about it. Oh gosh, if you guys ever like, you know, got together, if you all ever got together though, man, I would freaking just like, you just see how crazily degen I could be when I'm gambling. That's not really a good thing though, guys. Be responsible gaming. You know, I'm not advocating to go on gamble though, but you know, nonetheless though, you know, I understand, you know, that it's a gamble. I understand that the odds and whatnot are not in my favor and whatnot. So, you know, win or lose, I'm going to accept the fact, you know, that I'm going to enjoy myself. You know, that's really what I really, you know, like players to, you know, understand, you know, about this. Like a lot of times players are almost like, some players actually are in that weird so-called vibe where it's like, it's me against the dealer. Like the dealer is the complete enemy of you and whatnot though. So I have to like basically, you know, be like a complete like, well, a-hole or an asshole, you know, to you and whatnot though, because like, you know, you're my enemy, you're gonna take my money and la da da. You know, I'm like, dude, you can have all the money you want, you know, if you win it legitly, it's all yours, you know, without understanding that, yeah, exactly. There's no rigging this thing, you know.
That was one of the things what I really liked about dealing craps is because they never blamed the dealer unless it hit them, the dice, of course, because it's like it'd be like, you're throwing a dice, how is it my fault you lost? You know, like, whereas all the other games, it's like, you know, oh, you're a bad dealer. Well, it's like, why? Because you didn't win?
Right, exactly.
Why did you stay on 12?
Oh, gosh, jeez, unreal. But yes, I mean, you know, like I said though, you know, there are gonna be people who are, you know, like that. But you know, for the most part though, most of the people that you run into, you know, through the entire career, most of them, you know, pretty cordial about it though. They're there to just have a good time and whatnot. And you know, that's what you know, I absolutely love about, you know, meeting all the new players. And of course, you know, you love the regulars that always, you know, come and find you, you know, be like, Johnny, you're here, or Danny, you're here. Let's do this, you know, and just, or Jay, you know, like I said, they're just here to have a good time, right? That's all it is though. And we're here to have a good time too. Yeah. So, yep.
Awesome. So Rob,
yep.
What is something that you can tell us about Hawaii that we may not know?
Ooh, something about Hawaii that you guys may not know. Well, it is the only state in the United States that actually has a palace. It actually is the only, it's actually the only, so actually, you know, it's right up John's alley and whatnot though. It was at one point like British occupied and whatnot. So there's a lot of Victorian-esque things, like, you know, whenever you go through like a lot of the so-called royalty and stuff like that though, and even a lot of the buildings are almost like very, very British-like, you know, around here and everything. Whatever. If you want to know about like a local quirk and stuff like that here in Hawaii, well, I mean, Hawaii is basically an island where basically everybody's just almost in like chillax mode, or at least 99% of the people here are. So very rarely will you ever hear a car honking at another person and stuff like that. And I come from New York. I mean, you know, I mean, you basically have to filter out. That's like background noise of like cars honking at each other like instantaneously. Here, it's almost like dead silent. It's kind of eerie, and it's like very, very, it's very, very, you know, what's the word? Almost like, you know, almost unbelievable to people who basically, you know, visit here the first time, you know, of like basically how, you know, nice people are. I guess that's like a new thing nowadays though, you know, wow, you have so much nice people here and stuff. But I mean, you know, you guys come from Canada, though. I did hear, though, actually, Canada has, like, for sure, pretty nice people anyways, though. You know, people are more cordial, you know, in general, you know, than most cosmopolitan cities here in the United States, you know, where everybody's just, like, in a rush, you know, you know what, though, I just want to get from point A to point B and stuff like that. And, you know, they're just always in a rush somewheres and stuff. You know, they just cannot kick back and relax. Here, everybody's chill. Everybody's chill. It's like, yeah, whatever, you know, just go do your thing and stuff. So it's a very, very slow pace, you know, environment over here and stuff. So, and I was, you know, telling a lot of people too, though, you know, coming from like New York, yes, you know, there's a lot of so-called energy in New York that there is not in Hawaii and whatnot. But to be quite honest with you, though, all the partying, all the so-called, crazy stuff, though, I've already been there. I've done that already. I'm okay with just kind of like chillaxing right now. Though. Danny, you still have a while to go. You're a baby, basically. But yeah, Danny's a baby. Come on, you're a baby, Danny. You still got a lot. You still got a lot to, of stuff to go though. But for us, I'm okay with just chilling and chillaxing right now. So I'm okay with I'm perfectly okay with the vibe over here. Yep.
One of the things that on the cruise ships, excuse me, what they'll do is they do like a repositioning cruise because in the summer they're in Alaska,
right?
And then once it gets too cold, they shift and they reposition. And they go through some of them they'll do a repositioning cruise around Hawaii, or some of them just go straight down and go through the canal and go to the Caribbean. And I remember one time we were in Hawaii, in Honolulu, and
nice.
The casino were we had I think 3 days off in Honolulu. And we all took off. And anyway, a load of us went up to this bar somewhere. It was like miles away. And we had to get back to the ship. So we're like, okay, well, we ordered a taxi and it was late. And we're like, oh, well, how about we'll start walking and we'll just get the taxi as we go, right? So we're walking what we think is towards the ship. So we're walking. And then this kind of like pickup truck stops. And it was about, I think there was about 6 of us. So it pickup stops in front of us. And we're like, all right, what's going on here? This is a bit suspicious. We're all kind of like, okay, is this... Well, if we're going to get robbed or something, mugs, whatever. So this guy opens the door and he says, where are you going? And we're like, oh, that big cruise ship we all work on there. He's like, do you want a lift? So like, okay. So he said, okay, jump in the back of the truck. So all 6 of us jumped in the back of his pickup and he just drove us to the ship. He didn't want anything for it. He's just like, yeah, come on, I'll take you. And he just drove us to the ship. And it was miles as well. It was
really cool. Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, local people like that will do that, out of just like, just friendliness and stuff like that, though. Anytime you can help somebody out, it's what they call the aloha spirit, right over here, though. Now, in contrast, it's funny that you mentioned hitchhiking, though. So during my tenure at the Mohegan Sun and whatnot, though, we had a gigantic influx of so-called people because we just needed to, I guess, Mohegan Sun at the time was in dire need of a lot of dealers and whatnot. So a giant influx of people came from Poland and actually, studied, dealing and whatnot. They came here though. But, in Connecticut and whatnot, though, I guess where they're from though, hitchhiking is a normal thing and whatnot though. And we had to tell them like, dude, you don't want to be hitchhiking here though. It could get yourself killed. You just don't want to be hitchhiking around these parts and be found in the middle of a field somewhere, type of a deal though. So yeah, they had to kind of adjust through it and stuff like that though. So yes, I mean, in many cases, like I said, in Hawaii, there's not really too many so-called dodgy places to have to worry too much about though. The biggest crimes that we have here is mostly petty theft and drug use for the most part though. I mean, most of our news, or at least local news, is boring. They show news basically all in the mainland United States, what's going on in the mainland US and whatnot though, and obviously, we have a whole bunch of obviously drama going on there. But local news, cat got stuck in a tree. I don't know. Coconut tree fell. Oh, this coconut tree fell. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's some kind of boring mishmash, of stuff around there. So yeah, it's a big contrast and stuff. Yep.
How's COVID been in Hawaii?
It's been so among most of the so-called states. Actually, Hawaii is probably the freest in terms of what we can do and stuff like that, though. So COVID actually began really, really okay, meaning well, it's not okay no matter what you thought about it. But I mean, we were in the single digits of so-called infection for quite some time, and then all of a sudden, laws started to get relaxed and whatnot though, and people just started clustering together, and then all of a sudden the cases start to spike, and then we had to go through lockdown one time. Okay, cases went down, slowly opened up again though. Again, cases spiked up, we went under 2 lockdowns here in Hawaii though. And nowadays, since now the vaccine is rolling out and whatnot though, it's becoming a little bit more and more lenient. But yeah, definitely in comparison to New York and whatnot, Hawaii is a lot more free. I mean, there's movie theaters are open, and there's a lot of there's not too much dining restrictions in terms of the capacity. Although unfortunately, recently I guess after they let more tourists in and stuff like that, they the cases have started going higher though, so I'm hoping that we don't have to revert back again. Hopefully not. But so far, life is relatively as normal as we could be. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what it is.
Dream.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Come on here. The water's warm. It's right across the street from me. I'm staring at the beach right now. Yep.
Yeah, that's I went to so John was talking about the repositioning cruise. I actually ended up doing that, and I got to go to Hawaii.
Nice.
And Honolulu was amazing. But we got to go to Hilo, so we got to see.
Yes, you went to the Big Island and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say every single island in Hawaii is completely different from each other. It's just a complete 180, and that's another thing. Oh yeah, actually, here going back to what a lot of people may not know about Hawaii and whatnot. So on the Big Island where you were in Hilo and whatnot, though, you can actually ski up there, all the way up there in the elevation in the slopes. And after you're down the so-called ski and be done, you can just basically strip down to your freaking swimsuit and just basically jump right into the water and whatnot. Though there's so much microclimates that we have over here and stuff like that. It's almost outrageous, to actually think about it. So yeah, that's another quirk, about Hawaii and whatnot. We do actually have snow. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yep.
The water, that's what I remember the most. The water was super clear, and I saw dolphins playing around. The sand was super fine, and after it's such a big difference, because after we did that, we ended up doing the Panama Canal run. So then we were in Acapulco, and then there's pieces of broken bottle and the sand, and it's all rough and gross, and it's it's Hawaii already. So
yeah, I mean, that's what I guess that's what attracts us. At least a lot of the people over here, though, the pristine beaches and everything like that. Though it's kind of funny though, because obviously, I mean, I literally live across the street from the beach though, but I haven't dipped my foot in the water in months. And it's just ironic too, though, because to be quite honest with you, I feel that because Hawaii is relatively small, it's the water out there that actually keeps you pretty sane, over here. Basically, you just completely have a completely different vibe of everything after you are able to jump in the water. So I think I need to do that very, very shortly and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's things like that we take for granted over here though, because like you say, dolphins, well, that's just another, I mean, that's a dime a dozen over here and whatnot though. But a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, a dolphin, or a whale, jumping out of the ocean. I'm like, oh yeah, that happens, all the time here and there, during the whale watching season and whatnot. So yeah.
I think wherever you are, you seem to take for granted the environment you're around. I remember the first time when I went to Alaska and I saw the mountains there and the glaciers, and from Britain we don't have anything like that. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. All the Canadians that I work with were like, meh, it's like going to Jasper or Banff. They weren't impressed with it at all. They're like, yeah, we do this all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it is though. So, it's we take everything for granted, but then, when you look around, wherever you're at though, there's always some kind of gem usually that you always take for granted around though. So yeah, I'm trying not to take anything for granted. I'm trying to live life as happily as possible and whatnot. So that's what it is. That should be the goal for everybody though. Happiness above all else. Yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. I definitely would love to go back, and I know Danny, you want to possibly work on the ships at some point, and I just say that was the one experience that I would totally take with me. And I know Hawaii, I definitely want to go back just because of the fact that I had the chance to go there once. So
oh yeah, absolutely. When you guys just swing on by.
So when the second time I went to Hawaii, I went with my wife on the ship, and so we were there for 3 days in Honolulu. So we're like, oh, let's book a hotel. So we phoned up. I think we ended up getting a hotel on Waikiki Beach. Right. And so we're like, hey, we work on a cruise ship. Can we get a discount? They're like, yeah, sure, come on, we'll give you a discount. So when we worked on the ship, there's no baths, right, in our cabin. So we've been on the ship for like, I don't know, a couple of months, 3 or 4 months. We're like, oh my God, we can have a bath. We go in there, we'll have a bath. So we get to this hotel and they're like, hey, I tell you what, we'll give you like airline discount. We're like, okay, is it good? They're like, oh yeah, it's real good. So it was like $100 for like, this was a long time ago, but it was like $100 for like 3 nights. It was crazy cheap. So we're like, okay, this is amazing. So we go up to the hotel room. We're like, hey, let's have a bath because we hadn't had one in a long time. We go in the hotel room. It's a shower. It's like a big walk-in shower. They have no bath. We're like, oh my God.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Wow. And it was like, oh my God, we can sleep off the ship. We'll have a bath, and it was no bath. It was just like this giant walk-in shower.
Just a giant shower, and that's it, though. Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah, bath is a pretty posh thing, isn't it? Like, taking a nice little bath, with all the bubble and a rubber ducky, the rubber ducky, right? The nice little, the good old bath scenes that you always see in the old school movies and whatnot. I'm like, do people take baths anymore? I guess they do.
Love a good bath when it's cold.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we have like 5. Look at the time already. It's an hour and 25 minutes.
Holy crap!
Yeah, we have like.
Is that really that long that went by?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
yeah. No, really, you weren't joking. You said that time was gonna fly, and I was just like, yeah, we'll just play by ear and what. It went like that. My gosh, holy moly.
Yeah. You were saying, John?
No, I was just saying it. I don't know why or how it seems to, like, every time we do this, it's like, oh my God, what time is it? Oh, we've got like 5 more minutes. So we've been talking for like an hour and 25 minutes.
We can go forever. I guarantee you we can go forever. We can absolutely go forever in all of this type of stuff, for sure. Just whatever angle you want to take it to. Yeah.
Well, you know what? We have you as our here. I'm going to show this quick picture because we have you as our current Universal champion of the universe. So.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Rob, if you were a tile, I'd call you for this. Nice. I love the name. Who came up with that name, by the way?
Oh, I did because what was happening at the situation here was that John had given you the nickname because he bestows nicknames to everybody, right?
Gotcha.
However, given the fact that he put himself into the whole championship picture, I didn't find that it was fair for him to give you the actual title. See?
Okay.
It would have been condescending, like his title in a sense. So
I will do the title justice. Damn it! I will do the title justice.
Yeah, you may have a challenger soon. Possibly.
Looking forward to it. Let's see.
Yeah,
Let's see who it is.
I don't know who it may be.
Is it you? Is it you, Danny? It's you, Danny.
Sorry, that was my hand.
You zoomed it. Oh, okay. All right. Let's do this. Can't wait.
No. So, yeah, just a couple of things though before we wrap up here. I just wanted to show the schedule because we actually do have the podcast for April. So next week we're actually going to have Joe, who actually experienced the the ships with me. Like his first contract was my only contract, and that's when we kind of went to Hawaii, and he was like a big brother to me. So he's gonna be on next week for our 1 hour special before the hockey game. So that's pretty awesome. But Rob, any final shout outs before we kind of wrap up here?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to my wife, who's right over there. Shout out to Greg all the way in Moscow and whatnot. Though he's like my Russian brother. We haven't seen each other for like ever and whatnot. Though, but I'm gonna come down there as soon as this whole pandemic is basically under control and whatnot. Though, so yeah, I'll check you guys there as well. You and a bunch of Roman and them. So yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, co-hosts, any final words? Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, Danny. What do you have to say?
I don't know. This is
of course.
Well, I just want to say thanks to our special guest for coming on and being a good time like always.
It's a pleasure, always. It was a lot of fun. I just cannot believe like the time just flew by like that. Crazy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And John?
Yep.
It's always fun. I really do enjoy for the last 8-9 months that we've been doing this every Wednesday to talk to different people and just listen to some cool stories. And the time flies, and it's always been fun. So thanks, Rob, for coming on. Thanks, Danny, for coming on, and Jay. And good luck with the new baby coming soon. And
thank you so much. Oh gosh, fatherhood. That's my next chapter in life.
Yeah. And thanks for showing us your pig. Your pig was awesome.
Absolutely,
too.
Absolutely. Yep. It was a pleasure, guys. Take care.
Yeah, well, we'll see you on very soon because you're currently you're currently on the live streams for the live table games segments that we have on the Casino Dealer J YouTube channel. So we hope to see you on there.
Yes, absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much. Totally appreciate having you on, and I know I know you're pretty busy and whatnot. So I totally appreciate just having you on for this segment. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, not a problem. It's a pleasure.
Okay, everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening.
That was wonderful. Yep.
Okay.
So you guys are all gonna probably head to bed. I don't know what time. It has to be like a weird timing for you guys. What time is it over there by you?
10.
10? Oh, it's not too bad and whatnot, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm still on time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun and whatnot, though. Yeah, and like I said, though, if you guys ever, have questions about like investing and whatnot, though, or ever want to learn about like options and whatnot, I'm more than happy to, show you the ropes at least, to like get you guys started and stuff. It's all I've been doing basically. I've taught like over 70 people, throughout this entire pandemic, how to basically get off the right foot and stuff like that. Though, because, it was exactly like, John says and whatnot, though a lot of times people don't understand, like, the difference between investing and gambling and stuff like that, though you can hypothetically turn it into a gamble. Indeed, you definitely can, though, but there are other ways that you can actually make it literally, like I said, a profitable endeavor, in the long term. So that's the one thing to, understand. Like a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, aren't you just gambling all day long then and stuff like that? Don't get me wrong, I love to gamble, but no, not in this own case though. No, I don't gamble when I'm investing and stuff like that. Though I know in the long term, I will always come out on the top of this, and that's really what it is. When I'm doing this type of investing. So like I said though, if you guys ever want to learn anything and stuff like that about it though, I'm more than happy to show you guys stuff.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Everyone have a great evening.
Yep. Peace.